The situation remains tense in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo after M23 rebels pulled out of the peace talks in Luanda. This development comes as the DRC's former president, Joseph Kabila, is in Johannesburg for talks with former President Thabo Mbeki. Let's now hand over to SABC News international editor Sophie, who is in Houghton for us.
Well, thank you, Unati. Indeed, we are coming live from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. As you can see behind me, we are waiting here for the former president of the DRC, Joseph Kabila, who is going to meet the former South African president, Thabo Mbeki. You are aware that when the former South African president, Thabo Mbeki, was the chair of the African Union, it was at the same time when we saw warring factions and stakeholders from the DRC engage in what was called the Congolese dialogue. And at that time, the president was Joseph Kabila. And we know that because the problem of the DRC, you cannot resolve the problem of the DRC when you exclude the neighboring countries such as Rwanda, such as Uganda. And at that time, there was an agreement that was signed by President Joseph Kabila and President Paul Kagame of Rwanda and other stakeholders. The aim was to ensure that there's peace in the DRC. It was in the year 2002, who can forget those visuals when the former South African president Thabo Mbeki and the former South African president Jacob Zuma, at that time the deputy president of the Republic of South Africa, singing in jubilation, and also in the presence of the former leader of Malawi, Bakili Muluzi, who was there, and also representatives from the Secretary General Office of the UN, and also members of civil society in the DRC were there, because it was quite an important moment, and there was hope that this will lead to the lasting solution in relation to the war in the DRC. But we know that that document is now gathering dust. The implementation thereof didn't happen. And many people are saying that if that document was implemented, the recommendations in the document, perhaps DRC would be at peace now. And we know that one of the agreements in that document was cessation of hostilities, but also an agreement that those who fled Rwanda to the DRC, who are accused of committing genocide in 1994, will not be supported by the government of the DRC. On the other hand, there was an agreement that the Rwandan forces will pull out of the eastern part of the DRC, because the argument of President Paul Kagame has been that in the eastern part of the DRC, you have a border between Rwanda and the DRC, and therefore if there's instability in Congo and you are hosting the genocidaires, that is threatening the security of Rwanda, and therefore that is why you always find that accusation that the Rwandan forces are supporting the M23. Let me move out of the shot. President Kabila is now going to arrive soon. As you can see that President Mbeki is arriving for this important meeting. Immediately after former President Thabo Mbeki's arrival, we will see the arrival of the former president of the DRC. President Kabila then agreed with President Paul Kagame to have that peace process on the ground. As you can see, former President Mbeki and the staff getting into this office. Very soon we are going to see a car that will be former President Joseph Kabila of the DRC. Former President Mbeki has just returned from Cape Town. I can tell you he's quite busy, where he also met stakeholders from Sudan. As you know that he was leading the AU high-level panel on Sudan. And you know that even in Sudan, there is a war that's raging. On the other hand, we are told now even the South Sudan has regressed. There's conflict. The former vice president and the current president, both parties are now fighting again. We saw horrific visuals, terrible visuals coming from South Sudan. And on the other hand, we have the DRC. And therefore, that whole eastern part of Africa, and also including IGAD, it is going through difficult times. Eritrea also having challenges, and I think this is something that the African Union will have to deal with as we wait for the former DRC president Joseph Kabila to arrive. He is about to arrive very soon. And I think when they are done, we will be able to engage former President Joseph Kabila. I know that he was in Uganda a few days ago. He also met with other stakeholders in the eastern part of Africa, engaging with other leaders. As you can hear, he is about to arrive here. I think what is important is that this meeting comes also at a time where the M23 movement has pulled out of the talks, the Luanda talks that were supposed to take place today, citing reasons that there are sanctions imposed on their leadership and therefore they will not participate. And many people are saying this tension in the DRC has escalated, and there's fear that if the international community doesn't step in and assist, particularly the African continent, there are going to be serious challenges in the DRC. The other issue we saw yesterday, the Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who's accused of supporting M23 rebels, announcing that he is cutting ties with Belgium pushing the European Union member countries to impose sanctions on Rwanda, saying that Rwanda is behind the instability in that part of the country. And the other issue is that the UN also is seized with this matter where the global body is trying to find a solution. As you can see that we are about to see the arrival of former president of the DRC, Joseph Kabila. He's no stranger to South Africa. I would recall that after leaving office, he studied with the University of Johannesburg, and that speaks to the relationship with South Africa that dates back to the time where South Africa assisted the DRC during the Sun City negotiations in 2002. That agreement that was signed by President Joseph Kabila and the Rwandan president at that time, Paul Kagame. As you can see, former President Kabila there meeting with the former advisor of President Thabo Mbeki, Gumbi, and the CEO of the foundation. And he is going to meet the former South African President Thabo Mbeki in there. And these are two former leaders. When he started at that time, he was quite very, very young, I remember very well. And I remember sometime President Mbeki at that time, who was head of state, would talk to him like a son, not really like a leader. And I think the relationship is quite strong. And after the talks, we will try and speak to former President Joseph Kabila about the purpose of the visit. You'll bear with me now when we trying to get in there to see what is happening, to just get a glimpse of this meeting. As you can see there, former President Joseph Kabila and former President Mbeki. President Kabila, how are you? Are you happy to be back in the country?
Well, I'm happy. I'm especially happy to see President Mbeki.
You are a South African. You even studied at Johannesburg University. You like the country.
Well, am I a South African?
Yes.
That will get me in trouble in the Congo. I'm an African.
Thank you, sir. As you can hear, that's former President Joseph Kabila, who is going to speak to former President Thabo Mbeki. Maybe a recollection of the Sun City talks in 2002 when President Mbeki and former President Zuma were singing. Back to you in studio.